of history to inculcate religious and philosophical truths, or finally legends, historical in part and fictitious in part, composed freely for the instruction and edification of souls? And the answer is negative. We cannot say that. So we cannot say that they're from fables. And this was already in 1909. They were condemning this, and since then they've said nothing but that. The exegetes, modern exegetes, say exactly what was condemned by the Biblical Commission in 1909. And the third part, question 3, whether in particular the literal and historical sense can be called into question, where is a matter of facts related in the same chapters which pertain to the foundations of the Christian religion. For example, among others, the creation of all things wrought by God in the beginning of time, the special creation of man. By special creation, what do we mean by special creation, Daniel?
Grace?
No. Special creation we mean according to each species. So it says in the book of Genesis, he made them towards their kind. So, some say, well, God made a living thing and then it evolved into many different species. But we're saying God created each particular species. He didn't create every individual in the species because they bred and created new ones, but he created each species. So the special creation of man, he made man according to his own kind. In other words, he did not come from a monkey. He was created special creation. The human species was created as well. The special creation of man, the formation of the first woman from the first man, the oneness of the human race, the original happiness of our first parents in a state of justice, integrity, and immortality, the command given to man by God to man to test his obedience, the transgression of the divine command through the devil's persuasion under the guise of a serpent, the casting of our first parents out of that first state of innocence, also the promise of a future restorer. So the question is whether we can question the literal and historical sense of that, and the answer is in the negative. We cannot question any of those things. So they put the negative and say, well, this one, you can question that one, you can't. No, they just said in the negative, which means none of those can be questioned. Whether in interpreting those passages of these chapters in which the fathers and doctors have understood differently, okay, so some places the fathers and doctors didn't agree, but concerning which they have not taught anything certain and definite is permitted while preserving the judgment of the church and keeping the analogy of faith to follow and defend that opinion which everyone has wisely approved. And the answer is in the affirmative. Okay, so the wisely approved opinions can be determined as opinions. Whether all and everything, namely words and phrases which occur in the aforementioned chapters, are always necessary to be accepted in a special sense, so there be no deviation from this, even when the expressions themselves manifestly appear to have been taken improperly or metaphorically or anthropomorphically. Anthropomorphically, we put human activity to creatures. We take them like. And either reason it prohibits holding the proper sense, or necessity forces its abandonment in the negative. So we don't have to always take the literal historical sense in everything in these chapters. In a special sense, there can be some deviation when they manifestly are different. Whether presupposing the literal and historical sense, the allegorical and prophetical interpretation of some passages of the same chapters, with the example of the Holy Fathers and the Church herself showing the way, can be wisely and profitably applied. And the answer is in the affirmative. It can be. So, for example, St. Augustine said Eve being taken from the side of Adam was an allegory or for the church being taken from the side of Christ on the cross. Right. So that's another sense. That's not the literal historical sense, but that's the sense that St. Augustine gave to Eve being taken from the, and that sense is permissible to take a sense like that in addition to the literal historical sense. So you have to keep the literal historical sense, but it can have another sense. We cannot limit God. God is inspired the scriptures, and so we cannot say, well, God only means this by it. And the church never says, this is, usually they say, if somebody says it means something that's false, they say, no, that's not right. But they don't usually tell you what it doesn't mean that. They don't usually tell you what it does mean because they don't want to limit God to one particular meaning. But the literal sense can always be taken as a proper sense, but there could be other prophetical things in there. And we say in much of the Old Testament there's types, typical sense, where like Joseph providing for the Israelites was a type of Saint Joseph providing for the church. So what he did, it typified our Lord. And Judith saving the Israelites from Holofernes typified Our Lady. She was a type of Our Lady saving the whole human race by accepting to be the mother of God. So these things are other senses that maybe people don't know until you get afterward, and you can look back. See? Like St. Augustine, only because he lived after our Lord could he say, well, Eve being taken from the side of Adam was like the church being taken from the side of Christ. So none of the prophets could say that because it hadn't happened yet. And so that sense was there, but it hadn't been known to man yet. It was only known to God at that time that would happen. So the fathers do concur in teaching that God immediately created the first man, both as to body and to soul. And usually we say when the fathers agree on, when there's no disagreement among the fathers, that something's infallible. It's not the special infallibility when the Pope proclaims a dogma, but it's part of the ordinary infallibility of the church. But the ordinary infallibility was never defined. The First Vatican Council was going to define, or probably would have defined ordinary infallibility, but they never got around to it because, like I said, the First Vatican Council ended abruptly because of the Prussian War. And so it was never finished. It just ended. The Pope never said, okay, we're done now. No, everybody had to leave, and then it just ended. So it was by providence, God allowed the Prussian War to take place, and that ended the First Vatican Council before they could define these things. And so the Second Vatican Council was there to finish the work of the First Vatican Council in theory.
When you say agreement among the fathers, do you mean the popes over different times, or the theologians of the day? Or? No, the fathers of the church, there's the great fathers, the four great Eastern fathers and the four Western fathers. They were the ones writing in the early days of the church after the persecutions, so mostly in the 300s and 400s, and they're called the fathers of the church. And so if they are unanimous in something, it's considered to be infallible. So they were the theologians of the early days, and the ones that did a lot of writing are the fathers. St. Augustine, St. Ambrose, and then St. Basil the Great. So there's 8 of the great fathers, 4 Eastern fathers and 4 Western fathers, and then there's other fathers as well. And some of the fathers even became heretics, but they're fathers of the church. Are they like doctors of the church?
No, they're not doctors. They're fathers. Yeah. Like Origen. Origen became a heretic, but he's a father of the church. Tertullian. They're not saints. We don't have Saint Origen and Saint Tertullian, but they're considered to be fathers of the church. And they got messed up in there. So they're still quoted by the other fathers and by the theologians. They quote Origen because not his errors, but where he was right. So the fathers concur, that means we all agree, in teaching that God immediately created the first man, both as to body and to soul. And they see symbolized in the manner of Eve's creation the essential assimilation of the woman to the man, or the woman is assimilated to the man, the divine inauguration of marriage, and the origin of the church and of the sacraments for the wound in the side of Christ, the second Adam. So that's what they see in there. So as other senses, that's symbolized by Eve being created from the side of Adam. Well, here's another question from the Biblical Commission. We'll get to this before the unity of the human race. Whether since in writing the first chapter of Genesis, it was not the mind of the sacred author to teach in a scientific manner the detailed constitution of visible things and the complete order of creation, but rather to give to his people a popular notion, according as the common speech of the time went, accommodated to the understanding and capacity of men, the propriety of scientific language is to be investigated exactly and always in the interpretation of these? And the answer is in the negative. So we don't have to say, well, this is what it says, so science can't say something different. So it's negative. And whether in the designation and distinction of 6 days with which the account of the first chapter of Genesis deals, the word dies, which means day, can be assumed either in its proper sense as a natural day or in the improper sense of a certain space of time, and whether with regard to such a question there can be free disagreement among exegetes, and the answer is in the affirmative. So the church has not defined that every 6 days were 6 24-hour days, but that was what was always believed for a long time. Now the Biblical Commission says no, you can say it was 6 periods of time. So and that was see already the scientists they didn't have the Big Bang theory or anything like that yet. You know, they still believed in creation. I don't think anybody really had these false evolutionary theories already by that time, but maybe some people did. I'm not an expert on all that, but we'll see. So the next thing is, next part, the unity of the human race. And it's certain that the whole human race stems from one single human pair. There's only one Adam and one Eve. And actually, I think the modern scientists are saying that now as well, because the genetic, or some of the honest ones are saying, well, there's only one first Adam and Eve, one first human pair. The pre-Adamite theory, all right, that was first came up by a Calvinist in 1655, Isaac de la Perriere. Pre-Adamite, and the view of certain modern scientists that the various races are derived from several separated stems. So we call that polygenism. Many Genesis from many origins. Against this, the church holds for monogenism. That is, that Adam and Eve are the first human beings and the progenitors of the whole human race. The teaching of the unity of the human race is not a dogma, but it's a necessary supposition because of the dogmas of original sin and of redemption. So if we had people that weren't descended from Adam, well, then they wouldn't have original sin. They would still have immortality, you would think, unless there was original sin in every single origin of man. There were no people that did not commit original sin, or commit some kind of sin and pass it down. The first people all by God. So because of original sin and redemption. And then that also is why the idea that there could be Martians out there or intelligent beings out on other planets and stuff. Well, see, such intelligent beings would have they wouldn't be descended from Adam, or they would have no relation to our Lord Jesus Christ. So, there would be an idea that there could be other intelligent beings. It goes against, I would say, original sin and redemption, and that we need to be united to Jesus Christ in order to go to heaven. How would they be united to Jesus Christ? So they wouldn't. The Biblical Commission decided the unity of the human race is one of those facts which affect the foundation of the Christian religion and which on this account are to be understood in their literal historical sense. We just saw that, I think. Pius XII rejected polygenism on account of its incompatibility with the revealed doctrine of original sin. So there, in 1950, he did reject polygenism. So that was one thing good he did. The biblical proof is seen from the narration of the creation, which relates to the origin of all things, and therefore also the first emergence of the man. And there was not a man to till the earth, it says before that. And Adam called the name of his wife Eve, which she was to be the mother of all the living, and hath made of one all mankind to dwell upon the whole face of the earth, it says in the book of Acts. So all mankind is of one. That's what we call it, the human race. That's the one, we're human beings, and we're one race descended from Adam. So that's unity. All right, I think I'll stop there today, and then, but we won't have class next week. Because I'll be in the United States, and we won't have class the following week because I'll be in Canada, I think. So I'm going away for 10 or 12 days on Monday. So I'm going to pass for next 2 weeks unless Father Blaney gives a special class on a special subject or something. Maybe you can talk about it.